With the 101st Giro d'Italia on the horizon, we've picked 10 riders who could animate this year's race. Coming off the back of a momentous 2017 in which he won both the Tour de France and the Vuelta a España, Chris Froome has set his sights on the Giro, a race which he has not started since his first season with Team Sky all the way back in 2010. His activity both on and off the bike has been well publicised this year, with the case of his adverse analytical finding for salbutamol at last year's Vuelta still unresolved. It's a situation which is less than ideal for Froome, Team Sky, the Giro and cycle sport as a whole. Putting that to one side for a second though, as we focus on his 2018 results, and it's been an understated season so far. But we've seen a glimpse of his best form with a defiant display at the Tour of the Alps, in which he finished just off the podium in 4th. Froome has intentionally scaled back his race days in recent years in order to reach peak form at the crucial moments of the Grand Tours. So look for him to come into his element in the brutally hard final week. All of Tom Dumoulin's promise as a potential GC rider materialised this time last year when he landed the first Grand Tour of his career. That momentous 100th Giro turned out to be his only 3-week race in 2017, but he switched focus and capped off an exceptional year by taking both individual and team time trial titles at the World Championships in Norway. His ability to summon incredible power on the climbs as well as on the time trial bike is what makes him such an exciting prospect. At 27 he seems to be approaching the peak of his abilities, and dare we say it, could prove to be a genuine adversary to Chris Froome over the next few years. Incredibly, the Dutchman will go into the Giro with just 12 days of racing under his belt in 2018. Thibaut Pinot rode his maiden Giro d'Italia last year, and with great success. He finished just off the GC podium in 4th and took a big stage win into Asiago on the penultimate day. Clearly not satisfied as being pigeonholed as a Tour de France big stage hunter, the 2018 Giro offers Pinot a golden opportunity to have another crack at a Grand Tour podium. He's prepared well by reeling in overall honours at the Tour of the Alps. Is the Maglia Rosa a realistic goal this year? The 34km time trial on stage 16 may be where the Frenchman could come unstuck, especially when he's up against Dumoulin and Froome, but we can certainly imagine he'll be strong enough on the climbs to compete for a spot on the podium. Fabio Aru returns to take on his home Grand Tour after a 2-year absence. He was unable to line up at last year's 100th edition of the Giro after a training crash just a month before the start, and will no doubt be hoping to make up for that disappointment in 2018. It's incredible to think that neither Froome, Dumoulin, Pinot or Aru have found a single stage victory between them this year, but we know that the pros of today are more than capable of training their way into top shape without much in the way of actual racing. He's been more than a match for his big rivals Pinot and Froome at the Tour of the Alps, and a spot on the podium in Rome is a distinct possibility. 24-year-old Miguel Angel Lopez could be this year's surprise package in the Grand Tours. He surprised everyone by taking a very tough edition of the Tour de Suisse in 2016 and followed up with an impressive display at the 2017 Vuelta, where he took 2 stage wins en route to 8th place overall, outperforming his now former teammate at Astana, Fabio Aru. In contrast to his other main rivals, Lopez has 24 days of racing under his belt in 2018 and has taken a couple of stage wins along the way, including the second stage of the Tour of the Alps. It will be the young Colombian's first opportunity to lead an Astana team that is teeming with talented riders, and we're looking forward to seeing what sort of heroic Superman Lopez can accomplish. While twin brother Adam sets his sights on the Tour de France, Simon Yates brings some promising form into what will be his first Giro d'Italia. He's performed admirably at both the Volta Catalunya and Paris-Nice this year, taking a stage win in both and coming agonisingly close to the overall at Paris-Nice, finishing 4 seconds behind Marc Soler. Still only 25 years of age, Yates has already placed among the top 10 overall at Le Tour and La Vuelta, and he'll have aspirations of a podium here with the steep climbs of the Giro suiting his diminutive 59kg frame. We're not too sure how the Mitchelton-Scott management will balance the aspirations of Yates, Esteban Chavez and new signing Mikel Nieve, but it nonetheless looks like a very strong team will be lining up in Israel. For the sprinters brave enough to suffer through the mountain stages, there will be plenty of chances for multiple stage wins on the flatter days. We're at a loss to figure out how such a talented rider as ELIA Viviani has only won a single Grand Tour stage, but we're willing to bet he'll get at least one more before the end of May. He's been a stellar performer in track cycling for a number of years, but 2018 could be the year he breaks through on the road. Having finished a 3-year spell at Team Sky where he struggled for a spot in the Grand Tours, Viviani made the switch to Quick-Step Floors and comes into the Giro brimming with confidence. Both he and his team have dominated the early season, with the Italian adding 6 wins to Quick-Step's staggering tally of 27. In the absence of a real GC threat at the Giro, the Wolfpack's objectives will surely be centred around bagging as many sprint wins as possible for Viviani. Challenging his compatriot in the sprints will be Giacomo NIZZOLO. He's raced every single edition of the Giro since 2012, and he's been about as consistent as you can be without actually taking a stage win. In fact, he's finished 14 stages on the podium, but is yet to take his place on the top step, although he has won the points classification twice. He may not have a dedicated lead-out train for this year's Giro, but his undoubted pedigree in this race, combined with a field that lacks the likes of Sagan, Kittel or Greipel, means there should be ample opportunity for NIZZOLO to shine. New Zealander George Bennett has been improving year on year, and a real breakthrough performance could be on the cards at the 101st Giro. He's taken on some of the toughest stage races on the calendar in preparation and has proven himself among the best with top 10s in Tirreno Adriatico, the Volta Catalunya and the Tour of the Alps. A very strong field means Bennett will have his work cut out, but a place somewhere inside the top 10 will be a realistic objective for the Kiwi. In his younger years he was touted as the next Cadel Evans, but Rohan Dennis has instead honed his focus in time trialling, at least for now. And it's safe to say it's a decision that's worked out in his favour. On his day he can beat Froome and Dumoulin against the clock, and he'll be targeting the Maglia Rosa on the opening time trial in Jerusalem, as well as the 34.2 kilometre test on stage 16. He can hold his own on the climbs too, so there's a good chance he could keep the leader's jersey until at least the second rest day. Whether he's seriously considering contesting the overall will probably depend on how things pan out for him over the first week. We've got the makings of an absolute classic Giro. There are so many other names that we could have featured in this top 10. So we'd love to get your opinion. Who will win the Maglia Rosa, and who is your outside tip for a cheeky stage win? Let us know in the comments section down below. If you missed this week's GCN show, you can catch up by clicking just down here.